Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public, officers, welcome along. I declare this meeting open. And in doing so, I acknowledge this is Wadani Noongar Budji and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Under announcements, as you can see, councillors, under the $100,000 support package council adopted recently, to date there are, for the Business and Industry Organisation Support Round, 14 registrations with 4 submissions, and with the Bunbury Small Business Support Grant we've received 41 registrations with 12 submissions, so that's going very, very well. Councillor Hayward is an apology for tonight. Declarations of interest. I have a declaration, a financial declaration from Councillor Steck relating to 10.41. Are there any other declarations of interest, councillors? Thank you. We move on. Can someone move confirmation of the previous council meeting minutes, please? Councillor Brown, Councillor Steele, all in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. Are there any petitions? So tonight we've received a request for a deputation from Planning Solutions. Mr Ross Underwood wishes to speak to item 10.4.1. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. So Ross, I'll invite you up when we get to that item. Councillors, we'll just deal with each of the items as there are only 3. We move to 10.3.1. Can I have someone move that financial management report, please? Councillor McGuell, second to Councillor Brown. All in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. 10.3.2 requires an absolute majority. Can I have someone move the executive recommendation? Councillor McCleary, seconder. Councillor Yip. Is there likely to be any debate, Council? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously, thank you. 10.4.1, Councillor Steck.
Mr Mayor, just before I leave, I just wanted to say that the entire document I can't speak to, but the section on Western Power, I actually can. And this section of Western Power, which is in the schedule of submissions, is very onerous to every single ratepayer in the city. And it's very onerous for lots of reasons, because the cost factor for affordable housing.
Councillor Steck, just take a seat, please. I've just recalled your declaration of interest form. You have declared a financial interest in 10.4.1, proposed omnibus amendment to City of Bunbury scheme number 8. You've declared a financial interest. I'm inviting you to now leave the chamber.
No, that section is onerous and it's got nothing to do with the rest of the city, sir.
Mr Underwood, welcome. You know the 5-minute limitation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My name is Ross Underwood from Planning Solutions. Planning Solutions is a company that's been working with City Properties for around 20 or so years. We've been providing advice during that time. I'm here today to talk about item 10.4.1, the Omnibus Scheme Amendment number 2, which is on the agenda tonight. Now, Planning Solutions, during the submission period for this amendment, made a submission requesting that the WAPC's model definition for multi goods showroom is adopted as part of this scheme amendment. And we're pleased that this has been picked up by the officers and does form part of the recommendation. However, the officers are proposing a non-standard
definition for that bulky goods showroom definition.
Okay.
Do I? Okay.
We can restart the clock, Mr. Underwood. So please, would you mind recommencing?
Yes. Sorry about that. I'll
I had
lean
no
in.
idea.
So I'll.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Ross Underwood from Planning Solutions. We've been working with Citygate Properties for around 20 or so years. This item on the amendment on the agenda relates to the Omnibus Scheme Amendment number 2, which comprises various amendments to the scheme. Planning Solutions made a submission on behalf of Citygate to include bulky goods showroom as a model definition under the WAPC's model provisions. It's a standard definition which has been applied across Western Australia in recent decisions on scheme amendments and new planning schemes. Now, we're pleased that this has been picked up by the city's officers and does form part of the agenda and the recommendation. However, what the officers are proposing is not the model definition, but instead a non-standard definition for bulky goods showroom. Now, the issue is not so much one of planning merit. We can have arguments and discussions on which wording is preferred and which wording we want to go with. But the simple fact of the matter is that what's being proposed is a non-standard definition, and it's not a definition that the WAPC will approve. Before making this submission, we made contact with the chair of the WA Planning Commission, Mr. David Caddy, and received a letter from him, which I've circulated by email earlier in the week. That made it clear that the WAPC would only accept the standard model definition for bulky goods showroom in the City of Bunbury. More recently, we've made contact with David Caddy through one of our clients. He has again confirmed that his position, as stated in July last year, remains, and that the bulky goods showroom definition, the model provisions, is the one which he expects will be carried through. Now, the officers are recommending that because there's a non-standard definition, this amendment will be re-advertised for 21 days, brought back to council again, and sent to the WAPC. Now, it's fairly clear from the tone of the WAPC's letter that the non-standard definition is just simply not going to go anywhere. So after doing this additional work, the advertising, sending it back to council, it's just going to come back to the city from the WAPC and the Minister for Planning with a direction to make the change to reinstate the model definition. So our issue with what's being proposed is simply that it's a futile exercise. It's not going to gain anything, and in the meantime we're spending time and resources in re-advertising an amendment that doesn't need to be re-advertised. What I've proposed, and it was circulated in my deputation request yesterday, is that we, through this amendment, through Council's decision tonight, we simply adopt the model definition, so the standard definition, and my reading of the report is that then means this amendment does not need to be re-advertised and can be sent straight through to the WAPC and the Minister for Planning for approval without any more going backwards and forwards. So my respectful request to Council is that this omnibus amendment is adopted. However, in respect of the bulky goods showroom definition, the model provision is adopted. Within the scheduled submissions, those documents be sent to the WAPC and that the submitters be advised of the Council's decision accordingly. I have provided some wording, but of course it will be up to Council to consider whether that specific wording or a modification of it would be appropriate. So thank you for your time. I'd be pleased if there is an opportunity to answer any questions on that matter.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Just have a seat, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Barber, can I ask through the CEO a response to that, particularly comments or the letter from the WA Planning Commission Chairman?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The letter from the Chairman is addressed to the planning consultant, advising that they engage with the City of Bunbury to review the scheme definition, which is what we've done. The letter is not addressed to the City of Bunbury. It's not an instruction from the Chairman of the Commission to the City of Bunbury, and we haven't received any other instruction from the Chairman. There's 2 items in the proposal for further modification, which is the definition to bulky goods showroom, and also some modifications to the floor space caps in the mixed business zone, which was raised by the Bulky Goods Association. Neither of those have been publicly aired. They've come through submissions, and the advice we've received from the Department of Planning is that if we want to pursue those modifications, they need to be re-advertised again. So whilst ultimately the Minister for Planning has the decision, the City has to follow its process and the advice of the Department. We have seen merit in some of the elements of the submission, but we still have concerns with the model scheme text. So we're suggesting the proposal that is in the attachment, and the advice from the Department of Planning is that it needs to be advertised. Also, our current definition is not current model scheme text standard, but it was only endorsed by the Chairman and the Minister 2 years ago when the new scheme went through.
Thank you. Can I have someone move the executive recommendation?
I don't want to move it, thank you, but last week when we got these papers, it was very late on Docs on Tap, and so I didn't have time to really look at it before the briefing last week, and there's very dense text in there, and we haven't had a briefing on any of these changes, so I would like to move that we defer this until we get a briefing from our planning director, and that we get a bit more information and detail about the changes required.
So you're deferring it till when, Councillor Giles?
Until whenever we can have a briefing and on it, and then it can go on the agenda as soon as we've had that briefing with councillors and the Director of Planning.
Is there a seconder to that? I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's lost. Can I have someone move the executive recommendation? Councillor Plum, Councillor McCleary. Councillor Plum?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I suppose I'll just start by saying I'm well out of my depth speaking into planning matters, but I do feel obliged to move this motion because there's a number of concerns I have, but the fundamental issue here is the residents of Bunbury have very clearly indicated to council that they'd like us to do as much as we possibly can for the CBD of Bunbury. And whilst there's a number of other issues here which I probably will not explain clearly for myself, I feel that is in itself enough of an issue not to be taking businesses away from the CBD at this point in time. So I'd encourage council to support the executive recommendation.
Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going on experience, we've come across different multi-goods debates in council before, and I think this will be a good clarification, and also it shores up, it shores up the security of the CBD.
Is there a speaker against? Councillor Giles.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just simply to say that I don't think we've had enough time and information to absorb this, or I haven't, and it wasn't on Docs on Tap till last Monday, the day before the briefing, and I didn't get a chance really to ask the questions then, and I think there's lots of things that other people may want to ask as well, so I still think we should be voting against this and having another look at it. Thank you.
Speaker 4. Councillor Plum, do you want to close?
No, sir.
I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Councillor Steele, McGuell, Giles and Kozisek voted against. The rest voted for. Yeah, thanks. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers. Thank you, members of the public, for attending. I declare this meeting closed at 5:45 p.m.